Guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Sonia, and today, I'm moving, so hopefully the background looks okay. I am back on my couch. I feel like if you haven't been to this channel, you might have never seen the couch, but I used to do a lot of filming on the couch, so, kind of taking it back a little bit. But yeah, I am moving, and today we are going to talk about Igor. Yes, this is a Persona video. A couple things to note. This is going to be kind of a spoiler heavy video for 3, 4, and 5. I haven't played 1 and 2. So if some of these questions are answered in 1 and 2, I'm hoping that they're going to remake them eventually where I can have better access in getting the first 2 games. Because right now, to get like a PSP version or a PlayStation 1 version of the first 2 games is like $200-$300. I'm just not willing to pay that price. For games like I might like just because they're Persona, but I might not be as in love with them like I am the other titles. So, Igor's kind of an interesting character. He is in all the games. So, I know he is in 1 and 2, and the Velvet Room, and he always has, somebody helping him. The twins in 5, Elizabeth in 3. And I can't remember 4's name for whatever reason. But Igor is the person that helps you build up your personas, switch out personas, the merging of personas. He helps with all that. And I feel like I'm replaying 3 right now just to try to get the platinum because I'm so close. What I find interesting about 3 and 5, mostly with Igor, is that you sign your contract not with Igor at all. So in Persona 3, you enter the dorm room, and right there is that strange little boy that keeps on telling you the world's coming to an end. Which he's not wrong, but I don't need that type of energy. So you sign your contract with him. It's very, very confusing. Until you get to some point in the game where it's all explained. But the first part of the game, you're not aware of who this boy is, what the metaverse is, anything like that. So you sign the contract, you're good to go. And then you fight your first persona like an hour to 2 hours into the game. And then we figure out all the persona stuff and all that. The thing with Igor is that he does, like, the Velvet Room is part of the theme of the game. So with Persona 3, it's the elevator, which I'm guessing because you're in Tartarus, you keep going up in Tartarus, that's why there's an elevator. Because I think he's parallel to where you are, and then because you get to the top at the end of the game, the elevator stops. So that's kind of how that symbolism, I think, is kind of played out, in my opinion. Yeah, so you have that, and then you have, a couple other things that are interesting is that you can see doors. So, to our understanding as the player, like, we think we're in the Persona 3 world the whole time. Like, I really don't think the stuff that's happening at 5 is happening, like, in the same time frame as Persona 3. Based off of the calendar system, like, we know that we're in, I can't remember the year, that we're in. But you are in the year that the game was made. So there's, unless it's possible that there's even other things and other Persona users just like around during that time. And that's what's confusing me, is like, I don't think we really understand the Velvet Room, and I don't really think we understand what Igor is. Igor could personally be a shadow. That is a possibility, because you find out in other games that, you know, there's shadows that are created and stuff like that. So he could be a shadow that's a stronger shadow and can create other shadows. Igor could also be a god. Or like a demigod, or like a messenger of a god, type of thing, to lead you to your ultimate message. And that's what's interesting to me, is Igor's not he's pretty like in the middle. Like, obviously he wants you to reach your goal. Like, and that's the thing. Like, but you don't know why. And that's what tells me, like, maybe he is some type of, you know, higher being or something. Or he's like a shadow created from a higher being. Like, we really don't know. And then that would tell me, like, what is Elizabeth? Like, is she, like, kind of a shadow? Because the shadows are very interesting, especially when you get into some of the other games. Not necessarily Persona 3, because they're all pretty, you know, there's only, like, a few bosses that look different, but they're pretty much similar. But when you play, like, Persona 4 and Persona 5, they start being more human-like in nature. And especially in 5, where you can negotiate with them, they brought that back. That's a Shimigami Tensei thing that they brought back into Persona 5 that I'm actually surprised that they didn't have in any of the other games, but they just brought it back for 5. So that's part of it. But what I find interesting is, in most of the games, you have a companion that is a shadow-like figure. But that is not in Persona 3. Persona 3 is, you are with these, they're from the Kreijo group. I do apologize. Mitsuru, Shinji, I don't want to say Ken. I will come up with his name. I usually do. But, like, those 3 were, like, they created their own team of, you know, these Persona users, and then they're teaching the rest of the team of how to deal with Persona and all that stuff. So you don't, like, that's how you're learning about the world, is actually from people that are other Persona users. So you're not learning from the world like you usually do in 4 and 5. And I think that's probably why we don't have, I guess is the mascot of Persona 3. It's not Koromaru. I thought it was, but I guess it's Igus. And Igus is like created to fight shadows. So everything's like kind of created to fight shadows, but nothing like really from that realm is really helping you, minus obviously like Igor and Elizabeth and all that stuff. Unlike when you get to Persona 4, where you have Teddy. Now, Igor, like, it's weird because I feel like Persona 4 is the closest to what like, I expect as an introduction to this world, which is you're asleep. Igor's like, hey, here's a contract. He kind of explains it to you. No outside force. Like, it's Igor himself, like, saying, this is what's going on. And then you kind of go through the story and you're learning about the world. And you meet Teddy really early on. So even though Teddy doesn't really always understand his world as much, and what's really going on, because he's not used to, like, people being thrown into his world. He's not used to the chaos. He's like, it's always been this way until now. And then you're helping him, then investigation and all that stuff. But Igor has created Teddy, and he has a conversation with Teddy and stuff. So you know pretty much close up front that Teddy is a shadow. Like, he is very upfront about it. But, like, now you're creating, like, a higher shadow with, like, emotions and stuff, which shadows are supposed to have, apparently, but, like, we don't interact with the shadows as much as we do in 5. 5, like, is a whole different ballgame that we'll get into in a second, but this, with him being in the car, it's like he's, like, traveling through this town. Like, I kind of put him as, like, a mobster, and yeah, if you could see my lights, they just flickered on. I do apologize. But he's, like, kind of like a mobster with his limo. And that's kind of interesting to me as somebody that, is following him around. Like, Igor is so present, and then, if you play Golden, like, there's a whole, like, third chapter that I haven't experienced because I didn't have a guide for Persona 4 Golden, so I just played with what I wanted and then carried on. That's how I usually do most of the Persona games, is I will just play it, like, normal, and then I'll get a guide, and then I'll maybe see if I want to platinum it or not. Just depends on what the trophies are. But so there is a lot more involved with Igor, and the idea of Igor being like a Frankenstein character, if you don't know, Igor was the helper of Dr. Frankenstein with building the monster and stuff like that. And that's what the character's from. That's why I think he has the ability to merge the personas and stuff. So that could be a possibility too. Like, he could be maybe a human from the past life that became a shadow. I am... There's a part of me that really does think, like, he's some type of special being. And they all are. I think they're all higher being shadows, and to be honest with you. And then we finally get into Persona 5. Persona 5, to me, out of all of them, is the most important when it comes to what Igor is. Because at the end of the game, you find out a lot of things. One, you find out you weren't dealing with the Igor that we have known and fallen in love with from 3 and 4. It's a different Igor. It's actually the god that is trying to destroy the planet at the end of the game. So you find all that out, and then you find all that out. You find out that he made Morgana. So Morgana technically is a shadow. So poor Morgana. I felt bad for Morgana when it came to this section, because I think as a player, you find him irritating in a lot of ways, but you still want him to have a happily ever after. Because Persona 5 is kind of a little bit more on that side of a happily ever after. So is 4. So you hope for the best for all the characters. Um, but the thing is, like, how is a god able to replicate Igor? And then gods can do a whole bunch of different things in lore, so it probably wasn't too hard to replace Igor at all. Sure, guys. Especially when it comes to, like, this is a new Persona user, he doesn't know better, and that's kind of the way that they've took the storyline of it was, the god took his place, and then, but it changes the way we're looking at it, because you deny Igor his right to finish his mission, the god form of him. So it's like, why were we... And this is the thing with Persona 5 that's really interesting, because so for the whole story, you're fighting these adults that are doing bad things. So you have the teacher that's essaying students. You have the artist that's stealing artwork from his students. You have the mobster. You have the corrupt politician. You have the corrupt businessman. Like, you're playing this game thinking that you're doing the right thing. And then you find out kind of how it ends for these people. And they're, again, as trapped as everybody else in this thing. So it's like, at the end of the whole game, you kind of go, obviously that everybody has free will at the end. If you don't follow Igor, like the god Igor thing, everybody has free will at the end. Sorry, guys. And you have to defeat Igor. So, and obviously that wasn't the real Igor. He's probably going to be back in Persona 6 doing his shenanigans like he usually does. But I'm thinking he's like a Loki. Like, I think he is kind of like a god of chaos in a lot of ways. Or he's like a shadow of chaos. Like, there is some chaotic energy from him that I think makes Igor Igor. Like, it's interesting to think, like, he can just create shadows. Which, I mean, if you have the power, like, you don't necessarily need to be a shadow. You could be something totally different. But that just, looking at it, like, he's in the metaverse. He's able to live in the metaverse. We know that Morgana and Teddy are from the metaverse, and they can traverse. So they can go from the metaverse to the real world, which tells me, which we know that, Elizabeth and all them, they can do that too. So it doesn't necessarily, like, rule out that they're just upper level shadows that have, like, a conscience and stuff. That is a possibility. And shadows can come from, like, it's just negative emotions. But what if there's, like, another, like, subspecies of shadows that come from maybe more of a positive emotion? And maybe that's how they're created. Because I don't think Morgana's created from negative emotions. Neither is Teddy. Like, they like, end up helping us for one thing. And second of all, like, they're very caring. Like, as much as I don't like Teddy, is as much as he cares about his whole team, he learns, like, things. Like, he is right next to use I don't know, like, cousin or something. I don't know what her relationship is. I can't remember her name right now. Nico? I don't know. Guys, I don't like the Persona 4 as much as 5 and 3, okay? So, Akihiko was Persona 3, by the way. But, like, they learn about positive emotions, and they're drawn to those positive emotions. So that tells me that there has to be some type of subspecies of shadows that go the opposite direction, that can learn positive emotions. And that to me is probably what Igor and, like, his sorry guys, and, like, Jacqueline and Coraline, Elizabeth, like, all of those, I think they still could be shadows from more positive energy. Like, I don't think the metaverse is completely made out of negative energy. Even though that's what we really see, is, like, all the negative energy. We see all the palaces with all these really bad guys. But I don't... Because, in all honesty, the human being, like, typically is a two-sided coin. Yin and yang is more of what, like, we are as human beings. Like, we have a darker side and we have a lighter side. So it wouldn't make sense for the people that are helping us to be extremely one-sided or the other. And Igor could also be, like, it could be more of, like, an underworld kind of thing, where maybe he's like a Hades or, like, a devil. Sorry about that, guys. They are, like, power washing my sidewalk out of my apartment. I was like, I didn't think you guys wanted to hear that. Anyways, so yeah, so that's my thoughts on Igor. Kind of a rough thought piece. I really do want a game eventually where they more talk about, like, what the Velvet Room is, like, the creation of the Velvet Room, maybe the creation of Igor. I would love to see something like that. Now, if it's stuff that's explained in Persona 1 and 2, you're more than welcome to say, like, oh yeah, you, like, try not to spoil it too much, but say, like, yeah, there's some things that you talked about that are explained in 1 and 2. Like, like I said, I really do want to play those. It's just really expensive, and I have a lot going on personally, so I can't afford to spend that much on a game. But otherwise, like and subscribe. I do thought pieces like this usually every Thursday. Sunday is books. Um, it might be a little bit different while I'm moving. Um, I've already packed up all my books. So, things are going to be a little bit different when it comes to book reviews. So just kind of be aware of that. I will try my best to keep you guys updated. We're supposed to be out of here July 4th. So, and we're already halfway packed up with everything. I think both me and my boyfriend are senior movers. Like at this point, we have almost been together for 7 years and have moved like 6 times. So be aware of that. And I just wanted to thank all my new subscribers. I really do appreciate like anybody that's willing to interact with my channel. I really do appreciate it to the core, really. And I hope that with this move, I'm a little bit more open about maybe doing a few other things. We will have more space where I can maybe even film a little bit more, so maybe I can get more videos out to you guys. Because there's times like I have 3 or 4 videos that I would like to come up in a week, but I also don't want to make that my regular schedule because it just will be hard on me to keep up with. But with it kind of dying down season at work, I will probably read more, hopefully. So it might automatically just making content. But otherwise, thank you, and you guys have a nice one. Bye.